Do you believe this should affect U.S. policy to the state of Israel?
I think so.
How so?
Well, I think these are part of conversations that we're having in our caucus, but I think what we're really seeing is the ascent of authoritarianism. I think that Netanyahu is a Trump-like figure.
I have one more foreign policy question for you that's quite current right now. Prime Minister Netanyahu was just apparently reelected in Israel right after saying that he intended to annex the Jewish settlements on the West Bank. Do you believe this should affect U.S. policy to the state of Israel?
I think so.
How so?
Well, I think these are part of conversations that we're having in our caucus, but I think what we're really seeing is the ascent of authoritarianism across the world. I think that Netanyahu is a Trump-like figure, and I think that there are so many ways to approach this issue. Betty McCollum even has a proposal that she's advanced, asking the U.S. not to fund child detention in Israel, Israeli child detention of Palestinian children. There's different ways to signal it. I would hope and wish that a diplomatic approach could change some and impact policy. It doesn't all have to be legislative, but I think if we just sit on our hands.
Well, should we?
Would you be in favor of reducing military or economic aid to Israel?
I mean, I think it's on the table. I think it's certainly on the table, and I think it's something that can be discussed. And I think that and I also acknowledge my role in this as well, in that I think that I hope to play a facilitating role in this conversation and a supportive role in this conversation. But I also know that there are people that have been leading on this for a long time, like Congresswoman McCollum. And so I think it's important but I think that we need to expand what those policy conversations are, because I would, as just a citizen of this country, I would be very concerned if Trump started really pursuing more and more and more increasingly dangerous policies, and everyone just standing aside and say this is normal.
This relates to the president who was reported this week told the head of Customs and Border Protection that he would pardon him if he faced jail for denying entry to migrants. Chairman Jerry Nadler of the House Judiciary Committee said today that this showed the president's contempt for the law, and that it was for the president to suggest that goal by deliberately seeking to break the law is unforgivable. I assume you agree with him. The question is, what should be the consequences?
I mean, I think this is largely largely a question for our leadership. I think this is a very grave problem, but there are so many aspects to this presidency that have posed a grave problem.
Is it impeachable in your view?
I think you could reach in a bag and pull so many things out that are impeachable of this president. I support impeaching this president.
Well, your colleague, Congresswoman Tlaib, she's introduced a resolution to impeach. Have you signed on? Are you signing on?
We hadn't signed on when it was first introduced, but we probably will. We'll take a look into it.
You think you will?
Yeah. There's just so many things.
Well, what would be your top three? If you were drafting the articles of impeachment for the president, what would be Article 1, 2, and 3?
Well, I think number one is emoluments. I think it's always been emoluments. I think it's always been about that for me.
2 and 3?
2 and 3. I think 2 would be tax fraud. And number 3, number 3, if there's an investigation on this, I think this is pretty potent as
Interesting that you don't mention Russia in the top 3.
No, I don't. Because I think that for a lot of aspects of the Russia investigation, as we saw with the Mueller report, is that I think there are a lot of parts to the Russia issue that comes down to emoluments. It comes down to pay for play, financial transactions, Trump Tower. It comes down to money, and if we had gotten something from the Mueller report, then I would probably put that up there as number one. But I feel like it's a little risky to put the entire grounds of impeachment, put all your eggs in that basket. And when I think that a lot of this stuff happens through backdoor bank accounts and things like that. So I think emoluments kind of includes any misconduct, financial misconduct in relation to Russia.
And specifically on tax fraud, what do you have in mind? Is there something specific like the deflating assets to the insurance issue, those issues that you brought up, I think, in when you were questioning Michael Cohen?
Yeah, I agree. I think it comes to that. I mean, there's just so much.
Okay. Let me ask
like
you.
The census, there's, right. I can't even, the tax bill.